Good afternoon, Facebook people. I'm Cathy Novicky, and this is, oh boy, I forgot my
17.
number 17. Thank you. Hold on, just 1 second. This is what happens when I get caught up in an article, which is what I'm about to discuss. My apologies for my lateness. I said I was going to be on at 2:30, and it is 2:45, 2:50. But I was involved in reading an article, which is what I'm going to talk about today. Today is June 11th, and it is day 17 of my Champions Over Cancer Facebook Live 90-day challenge. And I am coming to you from the East Coast, Eastern Standard Time, and I got in really late last night and I did my Facebook. I wasn't really happy with it, but I wasn't happy with a lot of what happened yesterday. So I'm appearing very well groomed. I did take a shower last night, so you can all be assured that I'm clean. I just haven't done anything with my hair or my face because I didn't feel like it, because I'm tired. But my soul has been somewhat regenerated and rested, and went for a walk this morning. I was thinking to myself when I was laying in bed this morning, just the day before or 2 days ago, I was talking about self-care, taking care of yourself. Who's taking care of the health care provider if you don't take care of yourself? Well, last night I'm 2 hours over my shift or whatever, because I'm completing my work. I have to stay until my work is done. And this morning it dawns on me that I am not taking care of myself over these past few days because of what has been going on at my job to care for others. But I haven't exercised at all this week, and it just, what your perception is your reality. And my perception these past couple of days has been on the negative side. Not when I'm with my patients, because that would be inappropriate. Some of my patients I've cared for on multiple occasions, so they know me a little bit better, and they're able to, they understand, they know by, because they know me, they understand my facial features and how I'm acting in a certain situation, etc. And so they know if I'm not having a very good day, even though I'm not verbally expressing it to them. I'm trying to take the best care as I can for them, to give everything that I have. And they know that. And that is a lot of who nurses are, is that they give everything they have. And I used to say to my husband, every time that things are not going so well at work, or even when you have a patient that you really connect to and you can't do what's right, or for whatever reason. It just takes that whole experience as a healthcare provider, takes a little piece of your soul, because you try to take and make whatever is going on, to soothe the waters. You try to get people comfortable. You try to create the situation where there's going to be a good outcome. And when you can't, it is so personally and professionally frustrating that you come home to a place where, it should be your refuge. And it is. But this is twice now that I have experienced this emotion, to the point where you question whether you can continue to nurse in this environment. And from the first time I experienced this level of dismay, I guess, it was my perception, but others, when we spoke about it over time, it was other perceptions also. It's what had happened, and there were a lot of outside influences that were converging on one area that no one won. And it's not a win or lose situation. The one that really, he didn't lose, but he was on the receiving end of a lot of animosity from the environment, was the patient. And the situations that have occurred over the last couple of days, the patients and their families are, again, the ones that are taking the brunt, whatever it is, I can't even think anymore, of forces that neither I nor they can control. And it's this healthcare machine, really, that's just pumping out policy after policy so far from the bedside that you wonder, where did they come up with these things? Now, I'm going to give you a little background in the way the hospital is structured. And I'm sure you're going to think, yeah, we know how it's structured. And, of course, to a certain degree you do. There's senior management. Well, there's the CEO, the chief executive. There's lots of different names, but whoever your top person is, they answer to your board of directors. And I'm speaking to a nonprofit, in a nonprofit hospital environment. In a for-profit, there would be, I'm not sure if there would be a board of directors. They would have to answer to their shareholders. But this is nonprofit. Your top person has to answer to the board of directors. The board of directors job, for a better term, is to always be looking at the environment of the hospital's demographics, trends in healthcare, etc., that is looking forward into going forward into the future, in the years, in the the years of like a few years, 1 to 5 years in time, and the 10 and the 20 years, where they want the hospital to go, what they want the hospital to be, in order to sustain it. And so it's a very important job, because what you're talking about is the sustainability of an institution that provides care for individuals. An individual that is unique, unlike any other, has their needs that are their needs alone. And so there is a direct correlation. And then you have senior management who report to the CEO or the COO or whatever you call the top person. And they usually oversee an area of the hospital, or a for example, quality is not an area per se. It's not a physical area, but it's an issue. It's something that you strive for, that you have goals for, and so we have senior management in charge of departments and senior management in charge of I don't know, I'm blank, but you see what I hope you see what I mean. So these senior management people oversee whatever it is that they oversee, and they, from below, reporting up to them, they analyze and make decisions as to whether or not things are going well, things need to be changed, are regulatory agencies requiring something different, and so perhaps policies need to be changed. Now, just for background information, when a regulatory agency comes into a hospital, and a regulatory agency means the State Department of Health comes in and evaluates your institution on several different levels, and the other agency that comes in to evaluate you is called JACO. It's the Joint Accreditation of Hospital Organizations, and hospitals pay them to come in and evaluate them, and you must pass their inspections within certain boundaries in order to be accredited to receive Medicare and Medicaid funding. After that, private insurers would come next if you didn't receive their accreditation. So we pay JACO, not the state. The hospitals pay JACO to come in and inspect you. And the thing about inspections is they come and they look at your policies. And a policy can be anything from how your mission statement is written to how each section of your mission statement, all the way down to how you care for a patient, is written out in great detail and length, etc. And then basically, you must, if you have a policy for whatever it is, how high off of the bed an IV should be hanging for the best number of drips per hour for IV fluid. I mean, something, that's very simplified, but say that it's 2 feet, 24 inches above the mattress. You must hang the IV. That's where the IV must hang in order to get the optimal function out of the IV. And if they come in and they measure, trust me, it's really quite the it's like theater when they come in. They will literally pull out a tape measure and measure. And if you're 20 inches or 28 inches, that's a ding. Now there's a whole spectrum of dings. A type 1 violation is the most serious. And what happens is, if they find something that they call a type 1, which are things that they determine, JACO, then you're given a certain period of time, I think it's 90 days, to come up with an action plan to rectify what they feel was incorrect. And then they will be back at an unannounced time to inspect again. And it's a very tense time because management is pulling their hair out trying to get everything in line so that the review will be good, because they're getting pressure from above, and your bedside caregivers are being pressured by management to do everything right, which of course you want to do everything right for the patient. And I can say the last time we got inspected, which I think was in the fall of 2016, it's within the past 6 months, the only thing they could find on our floor, which is a medical surgical floor in a small community hospital, was that we had to, we have code cards, which are toolboxes on wheels that you roll to a patient's room if there's a situation that you need emergency medicine, you need defibrillation, when someone is not doing well. And the piece of equipment, the defibrillator, it's an AED and a defibrillator, can be plugged in, and then it has battery backup. And our policy says that we need to check it, and there's a certain way you do it without electrocuting yourself. You're supposed to check it plugged in and check it on battery, and we weren't. We were checking it's plugged in always, so the battery is charged, and I didn't even know that you were supposed to check it unplugged, but that's what they dinged us on. Now, in the grand scheme of things, that's pretty good, because they're always going to find something. And my dog whining, and that was, if that was all they can find, then kudos to our manager at the time, who has since been laid off, by the way, for being as crazy as she was, making us as crazy as we were, to get the best outcome that we can. And we did, you know, because that's all they could find, really. So beyond that, oh, excuse me, Astro, Angus. Beyond that, I was getting back to senior management. So, excuse me, I just need a drink of water. So, senior management dictates what comes up and what comes down, and they dictate policy. So they decide what policy needs to be redone, new policy needs to be instituted. They delegate to management to write it. Someone in management writes it. Then it must go to committee, appropriate committee, of course, for approval. If it is not approved, it goes back for a rewrite or a scrap and start again. And when it goes back to committee, if it gets approved, then it's sent out for implementation. And as I said, once you have a policy, it must be followed to the letter. They don't, the example of how many inches off the mattress the IV had to be placed, which is any nurse who's listening to me knows, will start to laugh, because it's like they're all on pumps anyway. But so it was a totally ridiculous example, and that's sometimes what these policies come down. Because what didn't I mention in my description of how a policy comes to be? And this speaks to this article that I was reading, and I will get to that. What I didn't mention was bedside providers. People who are writing these policies, people that are deciding what should be written on policy, and people who are writing the policies, and the committees that are approving the policies that then go out to the departments and are instituted, create more charting, which creates nurses spending more time away from the bedside, less time taking care of patients, one of whom might be one of your loved ones. And I have been one of those patients. So I understand both sides of this scenario. I understand how much time it takes for me to chart. I understand how unique each patient is, and how much care that each patient that I have in my assignment, how much time and care that they will require. That does not speak to the fact that I may start with 4 patients. I may discharge 2. I have to pick up 2 at 3 o'clock because someone's going home, which puts me back to 4, but I get an admission, so that leaves me, at the end of my shift I have 5, but really throughout my shift I've had 7 patients. Now, I don't like to quote literature, especially when it's not sitting in front of me, but there have been several studies by multiple organizations and societies that show that for each patient above a certain number, the percentage of possibility of errors, death, etc., increases exponentially. Now, for me as bedside nurse, there's only so much that I can control about staffing. It's not my job to staff. That's management's position. But it is my job to be an advocate for the patient. And when I say that this assignment, i.e., is too heavy, I'm talking about the fact that the amount of care that the whole assignment will require is greater than I can provide as one individual. But the way that nursing floors are staffed is by, they quote unquote, heads on beds, meaning patient in the bed is one patient. So if you have 10 patients, you need this X number of nurses. There's a whole grid because a lot of staffing is the mix, meaning nurses, your patient care aides, unit clerks. How many times, ask yourself, if you've ever had to call a hospital floor and no one answers the phone, I bet you get pretty annoyed. Why isn't anyone answering the phone? You wonder, what's going on? Well, when I feel that what I have is above and beyond what I can provide, all I can do is tell the supervisor that this is too much, and therefore, I am stating that this is an unsafe scenario for my patients. I'm saying I need more help, or I need an aid, because I am protecting my nursing license, because if something happens, it all comes back to the nurse. You know what rolls downhill. And when you have family that wants to talk to you and they see you rushing around and you can't stop to answer their questions, you can't stop to give them an update because you have another person who needs your attention more urgently, they start to think, well, are you going to come in to see my mother? Or when will you be in? Or will you be in at all? And that is their perception. Now, the latest and the greatest in healthcare is to give every patient the best possible hospital experience. And trust me, if I could do that for every single patient, I would be happy every day when I came home from work. But that's a dream. And I can tell you that it's a nice dream, but it's not reality. Because this is what the management of the institution wants. Because an excellent hospital experience leads to a perfect survey result, which then dictates how much revenue the hospital receives back. So when they want the best possible hospital experience, they really don't care about, B, C, and D. They're looking for the most revenue. And then what it also does is that it ranks them. Hospitals are ranked based on patient surveys and how well they do. Well, first of all, the surveys that are sent out there are 5 choices, and one is they ask you a question, and this answer is never. And on the other end is they ask you blank, and it's always. Now, in my experience, personally and professionally, the only thing that always will happen to you is that you're going to die. Nobody gets out alive. That's the light moment in this video. Never? Maybe if you're really, really, really grumpy. But all it takes is, okay, for example, I'm sorry, I'm moving around on my chair. All it takes is, for this question, were the nurses, please rank how you felt the nurses, the timeliness of the response to the nurses, to you. Or, no, that's not, that's one of them, but I was thinking of another one. How did you perceive their attitude to you? Now, again, this is perception, but every single nurse, say 10 out of 10, could be absolutely come in, the best attitude, everything. But the housekeeper might have just opened, a big bucket of bleach or something, so, you get a whiff of it right in the face, just as you're coming into the room, and you're like, ugh! Well, that patient might perceive that as that's your attitude towards him. So they're not going to put always. They're not going to check always on the box. And usually, who sends back surveys? People who are unhappy. So therefore, that affects your revenue. That affects your bottom line. That therefore affects the hospital's balance sheet. A balance sheet, I'm not going to preach, but I also want people to understand a balance sheet is assets, what you have, building, blah, 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 how much money comes in, and liabilities, what you are required to pay for. Salaries are a liability. So they are usually the largest line item on a balance sheet. So that's where they go when they look. They'll say, well, we did a organizational wide analysis and we found areas that we can trim and create more efficient procedures. So we're letting go 100 people. Well, ultimately, that affects the bedside for whatever reason, whether it's it's a materials. There's less people in materials, so when you call and you need something that's not stocked on the floor, they say sorry, unless you can come down and get it, we can't get it to you. Well, everything comes back to the bedside and the nurse taking care of the patient. So when you see those visitors that watch you rushing around and see you, get materials and medications and then go into another room, they're, they're wondering, why is that patient getting more attention than my mother? And it's because, I say, because this patient is sicker. But, that's why they're requiring more. But you can't say that to family members because their mother is the most important thing, and she's in the bed. So this is my area of frustration. And it's not getting any better. It's not going away. These policies, these ultimatums from on high that filter down all the way to the bedside are like metastatic cancer cells to every department in a hospital, because every department does, to some extent, serve the patient. And these cells are destroying every department in healthcare. Therefore, every patient that comes through our doors will be affected. Healthcare is in a very, very bad way. And the people at the bedside, as a person at the bedside and as having been a patient, I can say it's becoming harder and harder to give and take care of ethically, to the best of my ability, given the restraints that are being put on me. And I want to just have a drink of water. And I want to just bring up this Facebook. It's an article that was written it's more than a year old. I'm trying to get to the top of it. And it's on Kevin, capital K, MD, capital.com. And it's the description is social media's leading physician voice, med page today. And this is an anonymous author. It was originally posted on July 1st, 2016. And the name of the article is, "For Hospitals to Thrive, They Need to Value Nurses." And this author puts what I've described and puts it in language that I could only hope to achieve. But as I say in my comment when I posted it, it hit me right in the gut, because it's a very succinct description of what's happening in healthcare. And for anyone who wants to understand why healthcare is in such trouble, I think this is a wonderful article. Now, I posted it, but I realized after I hit post that I had changed the post to only me. So I was trying to get that changed back to public so I could hit it, because I feel so strongly about this that I would share it on my page and to public, to everyone who is on my page. And for my Champions Over Cancer page, I think it's even more important, because Champions Over Cancer speaks to people who have been in the healthcare system, who might still be in the healthcare system, and so they're experiencing this, and I have experienced this from both sides of the bed rail, and I just, I just sometimes I get speechless with my frustration. And for people who know me, people who work with me especially, it takes a lot to make me speechless. When I have no words to describe how frustrating this time in healthcare is. And that was really one of my issues to create Champions Over Cancer, was because I felt that the cancer-free patient community, which I have become, thank you very much, 6 years now, was a a population under the cancer umbrella that was not being addressed, that was not being cared for. And I still believe that. And that's why I'm advocating for this population that's growing every day. And that's in the area of when you're through acute therapy. These are people that I take care of as a professional who are in acute therapy, and I see what's going on, and the public sees what's going on, and your perception is your reality, no matter what it is. It is, if this is how you perceive something, then that is your reality. So the next time you see a nurse who's rushing around, and I hope you don't have to experience this, ask them how many patients they have. Did they get admissions? How many people did they discharge? How sick are their patients? How much time and how much care are each of their patients requiring? Because this is what the administrations do not want you to know, because acuity to them, acuity meaning how sick each individual is, acuity is to them 1 patient, 2 patient, 3 patient, 4. And every single one of those 4 patients requires X, Y, and Z. Same number of time for each patient from one nurse. But that's not the reality. And what you might start with at the beginning of the shift can change in an instant. And for anyone who's experienced a bad outcome as a professional, it never leaves you. If you are a patient and you experience a bad outcome, I'm sorry, I'm laughing at the dog who's making noises over here. You don't want to experience that, because it affects you, and it possibly could affect the rest of your life. So, Champions Over Cancer is a program, a network that is proactive, not reactive. I am being reactive today because of what has happened to me yesterday and what I have read. But I'm being proactive in the fact that I commented on it and I'm sharing it with you. Because consumers of healthcare are who hospitals market to. And when they market, you see lovely pictures of doctors and nurses, young, smiling people, collaborating, talking very calmly. It's not reality, people. It's not reality at all. And until enough people step up and say, no more, this is going to continue. And there's going to be, people at the bedside are going to be stretched so thin that they'll leave in droves. And I see it. Yet people at the top is growing because there's so much to do up there. There's so many policies to make, and there's so much quality and risk to oversee. And that's not, I don't take quality or risk lightly, because you're talking about human being lives. But they don't care about lives. They just care about the numbers. Because numbers bring money. Money brings revenue. And their salaries are very large. And they don't equate at all to what I do. I don't want their job either. But I understand that to recruit someone for a position of senior management, you need to be competitive to get a good candidate. Well, that's all fine and good. But the culture of an institution starts from the top down. And when you see the top being compensated extremely well, and their numbers growing, and your numbers at the bedside shrinking, do more with less, it's not cutting it anymore. So, educate yourself. Share this and educate other consumers, because there's nothing more important than your health. Wealth, it can't buy good health. It does buy you better health providers, but it won't ultimately change the outcome, because your health is really all you have. And you have to take care of yourself. And being an advocate and being true to yourself is being healthy. And Champions Over Cancer not only wants to address health when you're sick in acute therapy, but when you're done and you now are cancer free and you can dream and go for your goals because you've had the second chance. What's going to happen if you never get there to get that second chance? Because the acute setting is so sick. That's what I'm saying, people. So I'm sorry if people perceive my live today as negative. but I'm speaking from the heart. I'm speaking as a professional who works at the bedside. And I'm speaking as someone who has lost piece after piece after piece of her soul. And I'm really tired. And I don't know how much longer I can do it, personally and morally. So, stand with me. Rise up. Make your voice heard so that we all can be healthier. Okay? That's about all I can say today. So tomorrow is Monday, and I get to go back to work. Lucky me, I'm employed. I know there are many people that aren't employed out there. We have just lost 100 people in our network because obviously they've found ways to do more with less. Okay. So, think good thoughts for me for tomorrow. I am going to meditate on that and try to project a positive mood, which includes a good night's sleep. Tonight, I was up until 1 this morning. That wasn't good. So, I'll say goodbye for now, leaving you with those questions and perceptions. And so tomorrow's live will be probably after work. I hope it won't be as late as the last few times I've worked. Hopefully I will feel better about the care that I've given and the environment that I've worked in. So I will say, have a glorious afternoon. It looks really nice here. I guess it's going to be really hot tomorrow, so I'm probably be glad I'm inside. But, so I'm going to sign off, say peace, and I will see you tomorrow.